Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have a wonderful guest speaker for you today as part of our Desire to Inspire initiative here at HMS. And I know some of you will have an opportunity to ask questions after the oration that is given. So I want to introduce to you a scion of a premier political dynasty here in Massachusetts, my friend and yours, Congressman Joe Kennedy.
Morning, everybody. Did you know it's Friday? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Who knew? You guys have an early release today, too? Yeah. I am here to tell you you're going to be here all day because I've got a really long speech for you. Hey, I'm thrilled to be here with you guys this morning. Thank you very, very much for the invitation. Charles, thank you for the opportunity to be here. A couple of things I say before we start, and I'm really, more than anything, looking forward to taking some questions and getting some advice from all of you about what's going on and how I can do my job a little bit better. I assume that there's some of you here that might have some ideas about that. But before I begin, a couple of shout outs to folks in the crowd. To Deborah, Principal Keller, the Desire and it's to Inspire Advisory Board. This is an extraordinarily exciting curriculum that not just makes learning not just fun, but real and relatable. Reading about how you've brought the marathon to life through math, through language, through history and science classrooms makes me want to come and sit in on a lesson. I have to say, just please don't use my finishing time to teach anybody anything. To all of you teachers and faculty that are out there in the crowd, let me just say you have one of the most important jobs there is. I cannot imagine all of those early mornings, the late nights, the long weeks, the multiple lesson plans, and I'm sure a few bottles of Tylenol along with it, that you put into making sure that your students grow. And at the end of the day, the fact that you want nothing more than to see those students walk out of your classroom having learned something new with a big smile on their face. So from a kid that was me and my twin brother, we weren't always the best behaved of students, and from the perspective of a now new dad of a 3-month-old baby daughter, thank you. Thank you. That round of applause is going directly to my wife, believe me. And so to all you students out there today, I remember when I was also sitting in your seats not all that many years ago, and I can tell you how much I loved hearing that we had an assembly on Friday morning. I've learned a lot in the couple years that I've been in Washington, D.C., serving as your congressman. But most importantly, I've learned that if you're going to give a speech to students who have a weekend in sight, you keep the speech quick. So let me start with a question to all of you. How many of the students out there, how many of you are planning on running a marathon at least once in your life? It's pretty good. Nobody? Back left? Nobody? Couple? How many of you have ever gone? How many of you have actually ever gone and seen the race? That's more like it. Okay, one more question. How many of you were there 2 years ago? Yeah? Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'll get back to that in a second. But I do hope that at some point, all of you decide to try to give it a shot. It was almost exactly 2 years ago that I was standing less than a mile from where we are now, a little bit cold and a lot of bit nervous, about to embark on a 26.2-mile journey that I had never done before. I was excited. You trained for months and months to try to get your body and your mind ready for the Boston Marathon, and nothing, of course, can prepare you for that first race. The feeling of standing on a starting line that is so embedded into the history of Hopkinton and Massachusetts. You look around, you see friends In my case, my much more athletic wife. You see people that you've never met who are feeling the exact same way that you are in that moment. Excited, anxious, competitive, yet pulling for each other. Men and women, young and old, dads and daughters, mothers and sons, runners from every corner of the country and the globe. Except for Meb, because he was probably already crossing the finish line. Everyone there, no matter where they came from or how fast they were going to run, knew what that race meant for our state and for the city of Boston. And then you hear that starting gun, and you're off on the most grueling, most memorable experience for a few hours in your life. You descend through Ashland and flatten out in Framingham and Natick, and step after step, mile after mile, people who you have never met are out there cheering for you, the guy to your left and the girl to your right. And after what feels like forever, you reach the halfway point in Wellesley. It is coincidentally the first large group of extraordinarily enthusiastic college students out there to greet you. A few miles after that, you're looking up towards the peak of Heartbreak Hill, which at that point is less of a hill and more like an asphalt version of Mount Everest. And when you think there's absolutely no way you can make it, no way you can take another step, there's a runner by your side, or a spectator on the sidewalk, who tells you that they know you can. It was at that point that I realized that this wasn't actually the individual sport it's often made out to be. Yes, the race is about you and the course. Did you put in the work, or did you fake it? But when I was tapped out, when I couldn't take another step, someone I had never met was there to lift me up and push me on. For the last 6 miles of that race, it was those runners and those fans on the sidelines who carried me through, and thousands of others too. You turn the corner to Kenmore Square, and go right on Exeter and left on Boylston. The finish line is a few short blocks ahead. It's the crowd, folks that I have never met and probably will never meet, that remind you that you can and will take a final strides across a blue and yellow finish line. It is 26.2 miles of runners giving it their all, and their community, they're cheering them on, rooting for them to achieve their own goal, picking us up when we think we're lost, pushing us on when you can't take another step, right there by your side every single pace of the way. And at that moment, you see what is best about Boston, about our community, about each and every one of us. And that, to me, is what public service is also all about. Not about any one person's accomplishments or achievements, but the way that any one single small act of assistance can reverberate across time, across distance, language, generations, and borders. The way that a few words of encouragement or claps of applause can help you achieve something that you never thought possible. And that, I think, is also the most important lesson of Desire to Inspire. Our Commonwealth, our country, and our world need all of you to heed that lesson now more than ever, today and tomorrow. Although a few of you out there might think that I'm a little bit old, and I probably don't even have my own Snapchat, I'm actually not too far removed from where you guys are sitting, and I'm, believe it or not, on the younger side of people you generally see in elected office. And that means that my view, and our view, the view of decisions that Congress makes on issues that are facing our nation, is more longer term than some of my colleagues. It's informed by the type of country I'd like to raise my daughter in, the kind of country I'd be proud to pass on to her and to all of you 50 or 60 years from now. So make no mistake, the choices that are being made right now will have a profound effect on all of you guys and girls. The debates over war and peace, college tuition, energy, and climate change, they will shape our future. So I'm hoping that all of you will never pass up an opportunity to volunteer in your neighborhood, to offer support to a classmate who's going through some tough times, to help an opponent off the ground during your next game, or even just to carry your neighbor's groceries a few steps. I'm asking you to take full advantage of that desire to inspire curriculum and learn everything you can, to thank your teachers for a creative approach to education, and to take those lessons out of Hopkinton and wherever your life will lead you. Because public service and compassion matters. Because as I learned when I took off for a run from here a couple years ago, we are stronger, we are better, and we are faster when we are united towards a common goal. Because even if you didn't know it, those of you who raised your hands when I asked who was at the sideline 2 years ago, all of you were there cheering all of us on. You all still inspire me today. It's those moments that might not mean so much to you at the time, but can mean everything to someone else. You're cheering on thousands of runners. It's a blur as we go past, some faster than others. But to those that hear you, I can't put into words the impact it has had. I didn't have a chance to thank you then. Public service doesn't always come with a thank you. But let me thank all of you now for the thousands who descended upon this town and will continue to do so every single year, to be met by a supportive crowd that wants nothing more than each and every runner to finish to pass that finish line a few miles away faster than they ever have before. You all are there for them in that moment. And all I'm asking you today is to never forget how far that small act or kind word can go towards changing a life. Thank you guys for being there for me. Thank you for all that you do. So I hear you guys have some questions. Nobody's got questions? How are we doing this? Why did I choose to be in Congress? Yo! Sorry. Why did I choose to be in Congress? What's your name? Dave? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What? Jake, thank you. Jake, it's a really good question, and it's got a really long answer, but I'll try to be quick. So I had a couple of different experiences in my life that brought me to where I was at that moment, which was I was a prosecutor. I was a lawyer acting on behalf of all of us, right, in our community, trying to prosecute crimes and protect the victims when people were victims of crimes. I ended up dealing with a lot of drug cases, particularly prescription drug abuse, Percocet, OxyContin, and opioids leading to drug addiction. And the goal when you're a prosecutor is to try to make sure that the person that is in court never commits another crime. For a lot of the folks that whose cases I had, they were committing crimes because they were sick. They were addicted to these really powerful drugs or suffering from some sort of substance abuse or alcoholism. We could put them in jail, but that's not going to solve the fact that they're sick. And from my opinion, if you actually want to try to make sure that person never solved or never committed another crime, you had to address the actual sickness, the fact that they were actually addicted to a substance. And that meant trying to shift your focus, not just on prosecuting a case, but trying to actually help somebody before they got so sick that they ended up committing a crime. That ends up being a question of not so much the crime and punishment, but of the policies that help shape our society. And the way we do that is through politics. So one thing led to another, and I ran for office. So that's kind of the short version of the story. The longer version is every little kind of step I had along the way helped me get to where I am. I worked at the United Nations doing some anti-poverty work. I was a Peace Corps volunteer. Anybody heard of the Peace Corps? Yeah? Good. Hopefully some of you will be Peace Corps volunteers. It's a good program. So I lived in the Dominican Republic for about 2.5 years, working with folks that didn't have very much. I went to law school, and that brought me into a prosecutor's office. So every little piece there kind of pushed me that way, but it was that final experience there that said, if you really want to try to make a difference across some of the big issues that we're seeing, trying to get those policies right was, I think, the right place to go. Thanks, Jake.
Hi.
Hi. What's your name?
Hope.
Hope?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Did you feel that because you were a Kennedy that you had to be part of like Congress or something like that?
Hope, great question. One that I get all the time. Look, I grew up around politics. My dad was a congressman too, served about 12 years in office. And I've had other family members that I think some of you know have served in political office as well. When I was considering actually running for office, it wasn't something that I was sure I wanted to do. I was interested in it. I'd been brought up in it, but I didn't think I needed to necessarily do that at that point in my life. I just changed jobs. I was about to get engaged to my wife. There was other stuff going on. I remember having a conversation with my dad, and many folks think that my family pushed me into that job. If anything, it was exactly the opposite. My dad and I had a conversation, and he made it very clear to me that unless this was something that I wanted to do, I really should not do it. The fact is that for those of you that are paying attention to our larger political discourse these days, politics can be a tough business. And unless you will have some very hard times over the course of a campaign. In fact, a campaign is somewhat designed to expose a candidate's greatest weakness and then how you respond to it. So you get the press that asks a bunch of tough questions, and we have to respond to it. And when you answer a question well, people say, okay, you know that subject. We're going to figure out what you don't know so well, and we're going to expose that and see how people respond to it. And they can ask some pretty tough questions, as is their job. But if you don't want to withstand that scrutiny, if you don't know that you want to do this, it's going to be a really hard thing to do. And people will then tell. You can tell when your friends aren't having a good time. You can tell when people are doing something they don't really want to do, and people can just tell. And if you don't really want to do this, people will tell, and it's not going to be any fun for anybody. So my dad said, don't do this unless you're certain this is something that you want to do. Because if you're doing this because you think somebody else wants you to do it, it's going to be an absolute miserable experience for you. The best advice I got. Back there.
Hi.
Hi. What's your name?
Andu.
Andu?
Andu.
Sorry. Did I say it wrong?
No.
Oh. Good.
Do you ever plan on running the marathon again?
Good question. So, for those parents out there of 3-month-old children, I feel like I'm running a marathon every single day, with far less sleep. I would love to run it again. And I have to say that I know there's a lot of older folks in the back around the rooms here that have done it and have done it a number of times. Every year, since I ran it the first time, every year right around now, I see runners practicing and doing their trial runs, and I actually sit there and I really miss it. Also every year, about February, when it's 10 degrees out, and I think about how I would have to go to an 18-mile run, I really don't miss it then. So I would love to. My wife and I had a really, I think both really enjoyed it. It was a great thing for the two of us to have done and to do together. We're at a point now with a 3-month-old baby where it might be hard to do for a little while, but I would love to do it again at some point. It was an amazing experience, right? It really was. I don't know who's next. Back there?
If you were not a politician, what job would you think you would have?
Good question. So the short answer to that is I have no idea. I really enjoyed my time working as a prosecutor for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I think it's a really important job, and I think it's a job where every single day I didn't doubt that I was making a difference for somebody. And it's important, that part of my job was important to me. I'd like to try to figure out if there's a way that I could continue to contribute that way. I don't feel like if you are committed to public service, I don't feel like you just have to, the only way to do that is through elective office. I think there's a number of ways you can do it. My family's done it a number of different ways, whether that's through service through the government, not an elective office, or through various nonprofits, through starting nonprofits. They've done a lot with folks with developmental disabilities, Special Olympics, Best Buddies. You guys might be familiar with some of those. My dad started a nonprofit helping folks without a whole lot of money get heating oil assistance and heat their homes in winter. My aunt is actually a really good documentary filmmaker. She's won a couple of big awards, telling stories that are important for the public to know. So I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm not exactly sure what my future would look like there. I'm applying for a job again right now. I'm running for re-election, so hopefully, you guys probably can't vote yet, but hopefully your parents will vote for me. And if not, you can ask me that in another year, and hopefully I'll have an answer for you. But hopefully I'll still have my job. Back over there?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Tim.
Tim, what's going on?
Not much. How are you?
I'm hanging in. It's a little
Okay.
bright, so I can't really see you, but other than that, we're good.
Okay. Well, a lot of people say that Congress and the whole political system doesn't get a lot of things done these days. Some people blame partisanship, and some people blame like the rules that define our government. How do you feel that we should change something so that laws get passed easier and so that everyone works together?
So Tim, you asked the easy question of the day, huh? So look, it's a great question. It is the big question of our times in politics. I'll say that there's no super simple answers to that. I'll give you my take on a couple of things. One, it is undoubtedly hard to get things done these days. Two, yes, that's extraordinarily frustrating to me, and I think to a lot of people. I think a couple things, and three, there's definitely reforms that I think we need to make in order to try to make this system work a bit better. A couple points to keep in mind though. This system, our political system, was designed to be really hard to get things done. It wasn't actually supposed to be easy, and that's why we set up a House of Representatives, a Senate, and trying to get a bill passed in order to get it passed and signed into law, you got to get it through the House, you got to get it through the Senate, you got to get it signed by the President within 2 years. And given the time that we're actually in session down in Washington, D.C. doing work there, and half of my time is here and half of my time is down there. So when we say we're in session for 2 years, it's really about a year of work down there. And out of that, if you have to redo everything that doesn't get passed from the session before, the time actually gets fairly tight, particularly if you have a party in the House of Representatives, Republicans, that set their agenda, a party in my first term that sets the agenda in the Senate, Democrats. They have different agendas, and you have to find a way to merge them and get a bill signed into law by the President. It was designed to be hard for a reason. And so I think people have to also recognize the fact that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not functioning the way it is supposed to function. Our founders wrote it to be difficult. It shouldn't be this difficult. So then the question is what reforms should be made to try to make it a little bit easier, particularly on areas where there is widespread consensus across our country about some steps that we could take to make, I think, our country a bit stronger and a bit better. The two areas that I would point to are nonpartisan redistricting. So the way our congressional districts are drawn is done by every state does it differently, which ends up, this gets a little bit detailed for you, but you end up getting congressional districts that are drawn deeper and to be stronger Democratic districts and then stronger Republican districts, which basically energizes both sides. On the, I don't have a third hand, sorry, but energizes the folks on the far left and the far right. And then you ask folks to try to come together when you've actually already selected them to be really far apart. So I think if you could select folks to be more reflective of more moderate districts, I think that would help. I think the campaign finance system makes things difficult. One, it forces members of Congress to spend an awful lot of time fundraising. And two, it empowers some of the most extreme voices on either side as well. So I would focus on those two areas to start. The last thing I'd say, though, Tim, is some of my closest friends in Washington, D.C. are Republicans, right? This might shock some of you for me to say it. Republicans are people, too. You know? They are elected to represent their districts just like I'm elected to represent mine. And their views are just as legitimate as mine. They are serving their constituents just as I am trying to do. So the fact that they're a Republican doesn't mean that we shouldn't work together. The fact that I'm a Democrat, I would hope, doesn't mean that that they should think I shouldn't work with them. We're both elected to represent our constituents and try to find a way forward. The fact of the matter is that their constituents might have a different idea of what the right way forward is for their district, which is fine. That's, again, the way the system was supposed to work. Our responsibility then is to find the areas of overlap and work on those. And I think for some now, the right way forward is actually having government actually do less. And for some, the polarization that we're seeing today is actually a sign of success. And that's the part that gets me really frustrated when breaking the system is actually something that they want to do, which for some of them is what they want to do. That's the part that I think we have to fight through. The fact that the kind of ridiculous partisanship that comes up on top of that, just because you're a Republican, again, some of my best friends in D.C. are Republicans. They're great people that are doing their best to serve their districts, and I'm trying to do the exact same thing, and we can work together. We work together all the time. So it's a great question. The last thing I'd say on that, the way to actually solve it, how many of you guys, and include the faculty too, how many of you know somebody who could have voted last election and did not vote? Raise your hand. You want to change things? Make sure that at least one person that you know that did not vote last election votes, however they vote. I'm not telling you who to vote for. But if you do not make your voice heard, it is very difficult then for your elected officials to understand what your voice is. Make your voices heard. Yeah. What's your name?
Grace.
Grace? Hi.
Hi. What's your favorite part of your job?
Favorite part of my job is being able to come to middle schools on Friday morning and have a chat. So, look, the best part of the job by far is the people that you get to meet, right? Seriously, it's being able to be here with all of you. You get to meet some really smart, thoughtful, important people. You get to meet some really important people that are people walking down the street that have their own challenges and ideas and hopes and aspirations and concerns about what they're going through on a daily basis. And my job is to try to find ways to use the powers of the federal government to try to address the concerns of everybody. And you get to learn an awful lot about how the world works and how our country works, where we fall short, and try to find a way to actually make it a bit better. And that part is a pretty cool part of your day.
Hi, my name's Margaret.
Margaret, hi.
I was just wondering, besides like running in politics, what's your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby? That's a really good question. Thank you for asking. I haven't had a chance to actually dive into many of my hobbies. This job gets pretty busy, and being a new parent takes up every other second that is not this job at the moment. I really love the outdoors, so hiking, fishing, being on the water, camping, anything I can do to kind of get outside and get away is I really, really like. I don't get to do that nearly as often as I would like anymore. But any chance I can get out to be outside and outdoors, I love. Who's next? Yeah?
My name is Dorsa.
Darissa?
Yeah.
Hi.
I was wondering, being related to John F. Kennedy, does it make you feel like you have to live up to any kind of big expectation?
Great question. Look, I think the only thing that each and every one of us can do is you find a way to live your life and contribute the best way you can. And I don't think anybody can really ask for more than that. I'm trying to find a way to contribute the best way that I know how, and I would like to think I'm being somewhat successful at that and trying to make a difference. I think every country has its list of these seminal leaders that have been able to actually change the trajectory of a nation. And I believe President Kennedy was one of those folks. Trying to compare yourself to that example is a pretty tough example to be able to meet. So I think you do what you can with the tools that you have. And if you give it your all, you're not going to fall short.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Ashley?
How are you related to JFK?
So JFK was my grandfather's brother. My grandfather's Robert Kennedy, who I think some of you are learning about as well. He's a former senator and attorney general, ran for president. So Robert Kennedy was my grandfather, and JFK is my grandfather's brother. Yeah.
I went to the Best Buddies Challenge on Friday, March 4th, 2016. The Best Buddies Challenge, BBC.
Good for you. Thank you for being there.
Hi, I'm Bonnie, and I was wondering, are you ever going to run for president?
Am I ever going to run for president? Oh my God. I got no plans to run for president. Those of you that have, again, for the new parents in the room, a success for me at the moment is getting out of the house without stuff all over my shirt. Like, this was a big morning. So we're going to focus on that, trying to keep myself fed, my baby fed, getting sleep, and other than that, everything else is way down the list. Who we got over there?
Isaiah, what's your question? No, this little boy in the green. Yeah. Is it on? Yep.
Hi, my name's Isaiah.
Hi, Isaiah.
What inspires you to do what you do?
So, good question. Isaiah, it was a combination of things. So that a little bit of that first question that I talked about when I was a prosecutor and trying cases for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Probably the biggest thing, the experience that had the biggest impact on me was my time as a Peace Corps volunteer. So I graduated from college. I had a degree in engineering. I was a pretty terrible engineer. I knew I didn't want to be an engineer. I liked math because you could get the right answer. I stopped liking math when I could no longer get the right answer. But I graduated with an engineering degree. I wanted to see part of the world. I wanted to do something on my own. I've been very fortunate in my life. I wanted to give back, and when I looked at what opportunities were out there where I could do all of those three things, the Peace Corps kind of ends up being at the top of the list. And so I worked at the United Nations for a little while, working on a big economic development program for about 6 or 8 months as an intern. And then went off to the Dominican Republic and spent 2.5 years, close to that, living in the Dominican Republic with in a community that was pretty small on the side of a highway. and living and working for a group of guys there that took me in and accepted me as part of their family and looked out for me when I was sick and took care of me and just made me feel like I was one of them and one of their family. And Isaiah, when after I'd been there for a while and trying to figure out what was going to be next in my life, and I was applying to graduate school and law school and trying to figure out what I would do next, those guys who earned a couple dollars a day, maybe a little bit more than that if they got lucky, they were never shy about, when we were sitting down for food, taking half of what was on their plate and scraping it off and giving it to me. Even though they had, oftentimes they didn't have electricity or running water, they were in homes that were very, very poor. All that they had, they were willing to give to me. And when I got a chance to live with them and side by side them and realize the challenges that they were confronting, and also understand that I was then going to go off to Harvard Law School, and yet there was nothing that the community that I was living with, I was no more talented than they were. I was no more intelligent than they were. There was nothing that they could ever do that was going to get them to Harvard Law School. And because of the structural, the inequities around our society and theirs. And for me, when you get a chance to actually sit down and get to know these folks that ended up, again, being like a surrogate family to me, knowing that their horizons were going to be somewhat limited because of the circumstances into which they were born, they did nothing wrong. It was a pretty powerful statement to me that that's not really the way we should structure our society, that every single child, every single person deserves to make the most out of your own talent and your hard work and get you to a place where your talent and your hard work will bring you. And we don't have that yet in our country, and we don't have that yet clearly around the world. And I now have, I've got faces that I can point to and lives that I can point to show me that every single day. So that was a big piece to it. Where are we? Over here?
Hi, my name is Michael.
Michael?
What do you think about Donald Trump?
We have another question for you over here, if you're ready.
So, Michael, you're the one, huh? Right. So, why don't I say this? I think one of the great things about this country is that absolutely anybody can run for office.
All right, next question.
I'll finish it, that's fine. I personally, my own political beliefs and ideology about what I believe is the strongest part of this country are not reflected in the type of campaign or the rhetoric that Mr. Trump is espousing in the way that he is running his campaign. So I don't think it's a surprise to any of you that I'm not the biggest Donald Trump supporter. And why don't we leave it at that?
So the next question came from a student, and the question was, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
So I've got such a long list that I want to do on this one. So the place that I actually, so travel anywhere in the world and spend a couple days there. I've never been to China. I would love to go to China. So that's probably a quick check to the box. Place that I'd love to actually spend some more time, because I think it's amazing and beautiful and I don't actually get to spend much time there anymore, is just Cape Cod. If I can spend an extra summer day on Cape Cod, I would love to do that. Places that I've never been and would love to actually go see, which I don't know if will ever happen because it's a long way away, Patagonia and Antarctica, because I want to go meet a penguin.
We have our last question.
Where are we?
Hi, I'm Claire.
Hi, Claire.
If you could change any part of your job, what would it be?
Change?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So I'll give you two answers to that, one of which I wouldn't change, but the hardest part of my job is sometimes you do get these issues come up before us that are actually really, really hard. And there's really good reasons to be on either side of it. There are really compelling reasons to be on either side of it. And it's just, you're put in a really difficult position. And nobody likes to be in a difficult position. That is also why you guys vote for representatives to try to make those decisions. And so that's the hardest part of the job. It's also the part that I think we have to take the most responsibility with. And it's our obligation to try to give those issues the deepest amount of thought and the greatest level of concern and try to navigate our way through them and then explain to all of you why we did it, understanding that there's going to be an awful lot of folks that come down for very good reasons on the other side of it. That part's the hardest part. The part that I would change, if I could change something, without a doubt, absolutely tomorrow, this second right now, fundraising. It is... That part of the job is not a whole lot of fun. It's what we have to do, but I have not met, and just to make sure this isn't a partisan thing, I have not met a single politician, Democrat or Republican, member of the House, where I work, or the Senate, that ran for office so that they could go out there and fundraise. Nobody on either side of the aisle enjoys it, right? It's just the way that the rules are written in the structures of the current debates that we have to do it, but it's a pretty miserable part of the job. Hey, you guys, thank you very much for having me this morning. Hold on. Hold on. You all thought you were getting out of here without an ask from me. You're wrong. The one thing I want to leave you all with, if there's one takeaway, your voice matters. Even though many of you are probably not old enough to vote, you might be surprised at the impact you all can have on your family members, your older siblings, and your parents when you start talking through issues with them about how you look at them and which issues are important to you, and asking your parents why they're going to vote for whoever it is that they're going to vote for, and ask them to explain it. My cousin, Caroline, who's now the ambassador to Japan, it was her kids that ended up getting her engaged in the Obama campaign. And it was because they had started to listen to President Obama and were then senator, and became very supportive of him, and they convinced her that that was the candidate she should support. So you guys have an incredible amount of leverage in this election, even if you can't vote. But with that being said, I really do hope you all will find one person who did not vote last election and get them to go vote. It is critical in order to make sure all of your voices are heard and our voices are heard. And with that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Kennedy. We have a little presentation we'd like to make to you.
Who's gonna use the microphone? Who's gonna talk?
We would like to present this class of 2022 shirt to you because you're larger than life to us.
Come on over there. You got it.